I'm not a politician. Please don't get that. But I'm a man who got a heart for this city, who love this city, who want to see changes. Omaha was built on a legacy, and you have to be a part of that legacy to understand it.
Educate, inform, inspire. The Dan Parsons Show, a podcast that lifts up instead of tearing down.
Hey, welcome to the Dan Parsons Show. I'm your host, Dan Parsons. Coming up on today's show, Terry Brewer, candidate for mayor of Omaha. But before I introduce Dr. Brewer, I've got a couple requests. Hop on over to the Dan Parsons YouTube page and subscribe to the pod. We'd really appreciate it. Second, go to the danparsonsshow.com and become a friend of Dan on Patreon. As a friend of Dan, you get some special perks now and then. For example, we can feature one of your questions on an upcoming episode. Okay, on with today's show.
The people decide. The voices impacting Omaha. This is Election Coverage 2025 on The Dan Parsons Show.
Well, we are focusing on the Omaha mayor's race this spring, and the primary election is just next week, Tuesday, April 1st. There's 5 candidates running for mayor. The top 2 vote getters will advance to the May 13th general election. So it's my pleasure to introduce one of those candidates, Dr. Terry Brewer. Dr. Brewer, welcome to the Dan Parsons Show.
Thank you for having me on your show on this great afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So this is your first run for public office. What motivated you to run?
Well, you know what? Everybody asks that same question. And like I was telling people before, this started back in 1969 after our first riot that happened in Omaha, Nebraska, after shooting Vivian Strong. Walked down the street with my mom, and I couldn't understand why they trucked 24th Street. And so my mom, kind of tried to explain to her the best way she could. Came back home that night, had a vision from the Lord, and the Lord spoke to me and said, as I was with Martin Luther King, so shall I be with you. The city belongs to you. And so 55 years later, after I got my PhD, I decided then, when my wife asked me, what you going to do with your PhD? I said, I'm going to run for mayor. And so 2 years ago, I graduated with a PhD, and I started my journey of preparing for this race.
Nice. Well, that's a great story, Terry. I appreciate that. Well, as a way for our listeners and viewers to get to know you a little bit better, we're asking all of our guests these 4 questions, and then you get to fire one back at me, your choice. And we call it Dan's 4 and your 1. So if you're ready, let's do these 4 questions.
Yes, sir.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska on 16th and Maple, in a nice neighborhood.
You bet.
And been here half of my life. I went to the military. Then I came back in 1998.
Okay.
Came back in let me get that right. I came back here in 1994, started my ministry in 1995.
Very good. Very good. Question number 2, what was your dream job when you were a kid?
Well, my dream job, you really didn't believe this. My dream job was to be a radiologist. And for some reason, somewhere down the line, going through the military, going to college, I changed to become a professional health care. And that's what I do right now. I'm professional health care.
Nice. A different kind of doctor.
Yes, sir.
This is an interesting question, and I've gotten some really fascinating answers to this question. The most famous person you've ever met?
The most famous person I ever met, 2. But the most famous person to me is my cousin, Gabrielle Union, and my cousin, Sean Marion, who used to play for Dallas Maverick.
Wow. Gabrielle is your cousin?
Yes, she's my cousin, and so is Sean Marion, and so is James Harden.
Nice.
LA Clippers right now.
Holy smoke. Did you ever get to see him play?
Never got to see him play. We went to a family reunion stuff, but he never came to the family reunion, but never got to see him play.
Nice. Well, that's pretty good. That ranks right up there with some of the answers I've had here.
And also the most famous person too, don't forget, and he is my uncle by marriage, Earl Campbell, the running back.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes, he's my uncle.
Wow. Okay. Question number 4. What was the first concert you attended?
The first concert I attended, wouldn't believe it, was the Commodore. And they had this song called Brick House. so yeah, I got my first concert. Yes, sir.
Nice. Lionel Richie and the Commodores.
Yeah, Lionel
right?
Richie.
Yeah. Okay, your question back to me.
Well, my question back to you is, how long you been doing your show?
Oh, that's a good question. So I've been podcasting now for about 12 years, believe it or not. I think we were one of the first podcasts in Nebraska. The first alliteration of this podcast was called Pints and Politics.
Okay.
And that was kind of the advent of the craft beer movement here in Nebraska. And so, I like craft beer. I like politics. So I'd get people to sit down and have a beer with me and talk about their beer. And we'd talk about current events. And so that moved into a radio show that I had for a short time. And then I've had this version of the Dan Parsons Show just since last year.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Yeah. So thanks for asking. Well, Terry, one of the things that we're doing here with all of the mayor candidates is we are partnering with Flatwater Free Press and Civic, Nebraska on their voter guide project. Of course, Flatwater Free Press, Nebraska's very first nonprofit newsroom, and Civic Nebraska, a nonprofit organization here in the state. So I'd encourage our listeners and viewers to check that out, a very useful tool as Omahans head to the polling booth just next week. So here are a couple questions from that voter guide. What is the most pressing issue facing the city of Omaha and its residents? And if elected, how would you address it?
Well, the thing that I found out, the most important thing that really pressing us is affordable housing. We're having a problem housing a lot of people. And my job would be to, when I become mayor, the first thing I want to do is correlate with American National Bank's Omaha 100 to be able to lower some of the down payment to get them into there and make sure that people have an opportunity. American National Bank got a good credit program where they continue to a credit program to help you build your credit, get into a first-time buyer home loan, and they help you get your first time. So I want to work on that, get Omaha back up, create more housing for people who first-time buyers.
You bet. Another question. The city of Omaha's use of tax increment financing has drawn criticism both locally and at the state level recently. If elected, how would you either safeguard those TIFs incentives in its current form, or advocate for changes in that?
Well, the TIF program is a really good program, as I learned from Mayor Sauter. It does pay for a lot of taxes, and it does really help benefit some of the school teachers. You know what I'm saying? And so when I looked at that, I like it. It can be a double edge for offering potential benefits. Like economical development, infrastructure improvements, also posing gentrification and financial strain to those local government. So my thing was to be able to help increase it, because according to 2015, it had increased from the value of $584 million. And that's a lot of money to be able to use for the city of Omaha, Nebraska. Like I said, if approved, $36 million would be approved by us if it's approved. Omaha official last year, gave a green light. They said gave green light to 23 projects that represent $2.9 million. So to be created to help the TIF program initiative. And with that, I like to create, my thing always like this, is I would like to create more jobs with it. Bring more big companies back into Omaha, Nebraska, since Omaha is a fast and growing out west, and able to implement more jobs and help lower the property taxes. Because as you know, in our city, our property taxes in the middle, I call it the middle income, have doubled. Our taxes have doubled. So this TIF program will really help us to implement financial opportunity for those who live here.
Yeah. Very good. Construction on the downtown to midtown streetcar is underway. What do you think of the project? and how it's being financed? And if elected, how would you manage the project?
Well, see, we've had this debate already, and she already let us know that it's already been approved. There's really nothing we can do to stop it. The thing that is that, me, as I look at it, because it's only 3 miles. It's only 3 miles. And I thought when we look at the money we kind of put into it, but she also gave us assurance that since it was private money coming into it, I will continue to let it build on, continue to make sure it's usefulness. But I wouldn't stop it at 5:30. I would let it be used more than 5:30 and used more often, just not only for the World Series, but to be used more often during business hours and after business hours, because that's the problem. It stops at 5:30. I would like it to be used after business hours, because now that a lot of restaurants coming downtown, it really be good for people to be able to park their cars, get on a trolley, and go to a restaurant. So, yes.
Yeah. Just a couple more, and I'll turn you loose here. But you had mentioned the housing problem in Omaha, and obviously most major cities are being affected by that. Talk a little more about that, if you would, and the homeless, the unhoused population.
Now this is my field. For 23 years, I worked with mental illness for 23 years, and I'm advocating for them right now. My problem that I've seen with the housing is that we create a lot of housing, but we don't create enough housing for mental illness people. And when I say that is that once a person, I always say this, once we put them on medication and we send them back to the homeless shelter, there is no one to make sure that they take their medication, because we don't have that kind of CMA or therapist down there with them. So all we doing is just putting a Band-Aid on it, but sending them back and never fix the problem. And I want to be creative that when we do that for the homeless, I want to make sure that we have therapists, 24-hour therapists around the clock, to be able, when they come up in the housing programs and they get approved and everything, that we have therapists and CMA who can come in and make sure that they take their medication, make sure they're functionable, make sure they go to all the meetings. So like we have a day center. Make sure they go to all the meeting requirement for them. Make sure they meet every requirement to be able to stay in the program, because it's a program that I want to implement, that they'll be able to stay in the program because of the requirement. And like you see it, if they don't want to initiate in the program, I won't make them. But they get the opportunity that we can build more houses, save a lot of mental illness, and save a lot of people from the thing that I have a problem with it. And this is my testimony. And my son was homeless. He had a bad relationship with a bad woman. He got hooked up on drugs. And he went from shelter to shelter, because at a certain time, if you're not in by a certain time, you don't get a bed. And so watching my son go in and out of jail, because the police picked him up a couple of times for trespassing, in and out of jail. Nobody stopped to take the initiative to find out really what's caused his problem. And so one day he was in the shelter. They put him out for a couple of days, and he called me and said, "Daddy, I can't do this no more." And of course, that's my son. I picked him up, got my son. Thank God there's a program called Community Alliance, we found a good therapist over there, psychiatry, who analyzed him, found out he was schizophrenia, and got a medication. But like I said, because he's in my house with me and my wife, we're able to make sure that he takes the medication, make sure he goes to the program. He's got a good job, he's working and everything. And that's what bothers, and that's what gets me, because a lot of times people look at mental illness and just look at it like and just going on with it. But when you see a person got their whole life in a basket, pushing around the basket, wearing clothes on top of clothes, because they can't afford to leave their clothes there, because they got to take everything with them when they leave. That's not the way we came up. And I want society to understand that this is a serious project. It might not be your family, but it could be somebody else's family, somebody else you love on. And we need to take this very seriously. So I would like to see more, like I said, more housing programs for them, where they can be qualified by the city. Because sometimes city give, like, they give you a Section 8 houses, or whatever you call those Section 8 buildings, and they put you in the Section 8 houses, and they maintain. But once they put them in Section 8 houses, still, like I said, the problem is they don't know what to maintain. So you can put them in a house, pay the bills and everything for them. But if there's no one there 24 hours a day when they not coming from work, to be there, make sure medication is taken, you're going to end up creating that problem again. They'll be back on the street again because they can't hardly, someone can't maintain their own bill. That's why I want to hire more CMA and therapists to be able to make sure that their bills are paid at the appointments, they got everything they need, take them to the grocery store, do what they need to do, and then also let them know they have a freedom of life. But they can come and go, but they have to also have a deadline when it comes, just like in shelter. If you ain't about a certain time, you don't get no bed.
Yeah. Well, that is powerful testimony, Terry. There's nothing like the love of a father to take care of your son. So that's impressive. Okay, 2 more and we're out of here. I always give the chance to my guests to answer this question. Is there a question that you wanted me to ask that I haven't yet?
Well, you know what? The question that really gets me, and I tell this to people, I'm not a politician. Please don't get that. But I'm a man who got a heart for this city, who loves this city, who want to see changes. As I always told Jean when I talked to her, Jean had took us as far as she can go. But I have a vision beyond where we're at today. I have a vision for my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and all that. This is a legacy. Omaha was built on a legacy. In order for people to understand, you have to be a part of that legacy to understand it. When my great-grandmother came here, she came here because she had 10 boys. She came from South. And back in her age, in the era, they could hang their children without having any excuses. And my great-grandmother and my grandfather, who was the first black conductor on a train, coming from Arkansas on the way to St. Louis, stopped in Omaha. And when he stopped in Omaha, he seen the land. And he said, this is where I want to bring my children up at. So my great-grandmother brought 10 of her boys here. And my mom came with them, with her grandmother. And that's how we ended up in Omaha.
Nice. That's nice. Terry, how can our listeners and viewers find out more about your campaign?
You can go to www.terrybrewer.com, and you can find everything else you want to do. Also, you can go to Facebook. Facebook page is Terry Brewer for Mayor. You can also go to YouTube, and you'll find Terry Brewer for Mayor on YouTube. You'll find me on Instagram and TikTok.
Nice. Well, Dr. Brewer, thank you for your time and best of luck next week. And we'll be watching and paying attention to this election. Thank you so much.
And I just want to say to you, Dan, thank you for this opportunity. You don't know how much this meant to me to be able to have this opportunity. For someone to hear my vision and hear why I'm here. And like I said, I'm not a politician. I'm here because I love this city. I'm a servant. And I want to serve this city just like I have done for 30 years as a pastor. I'm just a servant. I just want to serve.
Well, we were really excited to have Terry Brewer join the podcast today. We wish him the best of luck in the upcoming Omaha mayor's race. In the lead up to the April 1st primary, we're interviewing all of the mayoral candidates. My thanks to Penology Tech Solutions for their technical help and equipment. You earned your keep today, guys. Chase Porter, who produced this episode. Kim Remington, Parsons PR's Director of Operations. And most importantly, thanks to each of you for tuning in. And hey, if you like this video on YouTube, check out our other episodes featuring all the Omaha mayoral candidates. That's the show. Thanks for tuning in. Now go do good things. I'm Dan Parsons.